Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Well, today I want to talk with you about something that is probably everybody's favorite truck cleaning product, and that is the good old-fashioned Bright Boy. These are basically a rubber bar that is filled with some type of abrasive. And the type of abrasive that is actually used is very important, as you'll see in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Bright Boy, various versions of it, and a new one that I think you're going to like. So let's go ahead and get started. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Now what I have here are three different Bright Boys. I think these two are probably from the same manufacturer. This one I'm pretty sure came from Micro Engineering. It's a little bit larger than the other two, but like all of these, they're just a rubber compound with abrasive embedded in them. And it's the type of abrasive that is so important with these, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to introduce you to a new one, and that one here is from DCC Concepts. So let me get this out of the package. And you can see it's a fairly large, as far as compared to these guys, rubber block, and it has the abrasive in it as well. Now, another company in England, Gagemaster, has also started releasing these as well. And I'm going to put a link to a video here that took a look at the Gagemaster version of this. And as soon as I saw that, I checked with DCC Concepts and found out that, in fact, Gagemaster is getting their version of these from the same company that makes this one for DCC Concepts. So what I want to do today, though, is take a look at this particular product, and this is available here in the US from ironplanethobbies.com and probably some of the other companies that are now selling DCC Concepts products. And you can go to the DCC Concepts webpage, and that's dccconcepts.com, and there you can find an online map that will show you the location of all of the dealers in North America, as well as other countries around the world, wherever you're seeing this. The difference about this from these others is very important. So let's take a quick deep dive into the different abrasives that are used for these. Now, I have found three different compounds, abrasives, being used for these, and there might be others. Now, some of these, like Kratex, use silicon carbide. On the other hand, they also make a Bright Boy that contains aluminum oxide. And aluminum oxide is what DCC Concepts and Gagemaster are offering in their large block type. Now, some of the others have garnet in them, and so we've got at least three different versions right there: garnet, aluminum oxide, and silicon carbide. So what is the difference among these different compounds? Well, for one thing, there's a little bit of difference in the hardness, but that is a relatively insignificant amount. The real difference is in the abrasive itself. And the difference is that with the garnet, they have a very sharp edge on the abrasive particles. And the aluminum oxide, on the other hand, has a more rounded edge. And you can see that here. I'll show you a couple of images from a video that I found on YouTube. And I'm going to put a link to his video above me here, because I think it's something that you're going to look at, because he does a very good job of looking very closely at these products and what I'm going to show you. Now, the first image I'm going to show you here has the garnet in it. And the garnet is, you can see, is somewhat angular in shape as far as those particles go. Now, if we then look at the next one, it has the aluminum oxide. And you'll note that the aluminum oxide particles are much more round in shape than the garnet. And the interesting thing is, aluminum oxide is just a little bit harder than garnet. But it's the shape that makes the difference. So what that comes down to is that with the very angular edges on the garnet abrasive particles, they tend to cut into the relatively soft material that makes up our rails, and that's nickel silver. And I'll remind you that nickel silver is a mix of copper, nickel, and zinc. And because of that, it's very easy to be scratched by some of this material. And what I want to show you here is an image from that video I was telling you about, and I really encourage you to go back and take a look at this video because he does a very good job of showing the differences amongst these different particles. But at any rate, the first image will show you a piece of rail that has not been touched. And then we'll go ahead and you'll see it's fairly smooth, no scratches, pretty good shape. And then we want to look at the next one. And the next one has a piece of rail that has been cleaned using one of the bright boys that has garnet in it. And you can see the very distinctive scratch marks on the surface of the rails in this. And then the next image I want to show you is the top of the rail that has been cleaned with one of these bars that has the aluminum oxide, which has that rounded abrasive. And you can see it's a much, much smoother, much nicer surface there. Now, the question is, why is all this important? Why are we so concerned with scratches in the rails? Well, the important thing is those scratches that you leave in the rails can serve as points where oil and grease and dirt can collect. And that will all combine to form that black grunge that ends up on the surface of your rails and also on the wheels of your locomotives and on your rolling stock. Now, as I've said in the past, the real problem with that black grungy surface or coating is that it can disrupt power to your decoders. And decoders, DCC decoders, are very sensitive to power disruptions, as you very well know if you've tried to run a locomotive on dirty track. So you want to be able to clean your rails as best you can and not leave these gouges. So that's why I'm getting rid of my older track cleaners, and I'm going to be using the DCC Concepts one with the aluminum oxide in it. Now, I will point out that some of the various companies that make these bright boys already do use aluminum oxide, but trying to find that out is next to impossible. The best I did was with a company that makes Kratex. So you can look up Kratex abrasive on the internet and you can find out what they use for their various abrasives. And as I remember, they do offer one version of the bright boy with aluminum oxide. So that's an option. Now, some of theirs, they offer other types of material there, so the silicon carbide in particular. So you have to be aware of what's out there and what you can particularly end up with. What I want to do now, though, is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this guy because, as you can see, this is pretty darn big compared to these others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, and I've already scored it a little bit, as you can see here. There's a score mark here and another one here. So I'm going to end up with 3 different bars that are about the same size, made out of this material. So I'm going to cut this apart. And then, once I get done with that, you can see how thick this is. I could probably cut 3 of these out of this, but I'm probably just going to cut it in half. So let's go ahead and begin by cutting it into 3 equal sections, about an inch, a little over an inch wide. Okay, so I've got my razor saw here, and I'm probably going to ruin the blade by doing this because it's cutting through this abrasive, but I'm going to go ahead and set it right in here, and we'll cut right on through. And hopefully we're not going to damage it too much. And let's do this one down here. Like this. Okay, so that was pretty easy. And so that left me with 3 different blocks about the same size. Now I could go ahead and use this as it is, but it seems like a waste because I think that these things tend to wear out and fall apart before you ever get all the way through. So I'm going to cut this in half again. So let's try that and see how good I am at that. Okay, that looks about even. So let's go right on down through it. Okay, so I'll do these later after I finish this. But you can see we've got a pretty good surface here. I'm going to clean this up a second, so I'll be back in just a second with that. Okay, so that gives me 2 fairly even, fairly thick bright boys that I can clean with. And I'm going to call them bright boys just because I'm so used to calling them bright boys no matter who makes them. So let's go ahead. I've got this track here that's pretty dirty in places, so we'll go ahead and clean that. and see how it comes out. And again, take a look at that video because he shows you some videos where he cleans the surface of the rail using one of these products, and also using one of the other products with the garnet-based abrasive. And he'll show you with a microscope the difference in that surface. So it does clean fairly quickly. You can see that's come out, and you can see the tracks where I've cleaned the rails, and whatever grit, grime, and grunge was on there has come off onto the Bright Boy. Okay, so that's pretty darn clean. It's also a nice, shiny surface. So I think I'll be using this on the layout quite a bit because these things are not bad at all. Now, and they also take away my reservations because, when I did the video on cleaning track, I told you that the Bright Boys were pretty much my last choice as far as cleaning rails. That typically I'll start with just a plain piece of cloth and wipe the surface of the rails. If I need a little bit more aggressive cleaning, I will go with maybe a damp cloth. When I really need a little bit more, I will use my isopropyl alcohol. And when I get really desperate and need to really clean something off, that's when I get out the Bright Boy and go at it. Now that I have something like this that I know is not going to scratch my rails, I'm probably going to be a lot less reluctant about using it anytime that I see that I need a little bit of work on the rails. Now, as I said earlier, these blocks are available, and here is the information on these. You can see it is a DCT-TCB, and that is the product ID that DCC Concepts uses. And again, you can purchase these from DCC Concepts in the UK. You can probably get them from any of their dealers in the UK, such as Rails of Sheffield. You can get them from Iron Planet Hobbies here in the US, and other dealers that carry the DCC Concepts products. And once I get through cutting these guys in half again here, I'm going to end up with 6 for the price of 1 block. As I said earlier, I checked just before doing this video, and Iron Planet Hobbies has these. At the time, they still had about 14 in stock, and they are on sale right now. So if you act quickly, you can go ahead and purchase one of these, but you better be fast because I suspect a lot of folks are going to get off of this video and immediately go to Iron Planet Hobbies and look up track cleaners, and they'll find it under that. So that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you're successful in getting a hold of one of these from Iron Planet Hobbies, and there probably are some other dealers in the US that can get these as well. So you can take a look at the DCC Concepts website, and they have a map that shows the various US and Canadian dealers for their products here, where you might be able to find these. But again, I found that there were 14 of these available just before I started to do this video. So if you're fast, you'll probably be able to pick up some. Plus, I'm sure that Ryan can get some more in. So have a good one, and we'll see you here in a couple of weeks with another video from the DCC Guy. Bye now.